Hi, everyone. Welcome. Super happy to have you here today. So with us, we have Tamim Harami, principal over at RapDev, as well as David Burbank, strategic partnerships manager at Datadog. So the webinar today, excuse me, is going to be about 45 minutes. We'll have 30 minutes of content and then about 15 minutes for more formal Q&A, but we would love to have people put questions in the chat function throughout the whole session so we can make it a little bit more interactive. So let's jump into our agenda for today. Thanks, David. Okay, we're going to cover, of course, observability challenges, as well as laying the groundwork and jumping into observability maturity, and then ending off with customer successes. Again, please make sure to input questions in the chat function. Let's make this interactive. All right, I'm going to hand this over to David to start us off.
All right. Thank you, Brooke. But to get started off, we're going to just briefly discuss the problem statement and why customers are adopting Datadog. This is something everyone's familiar with, but as customers are modernizing, as they're migrating, as they're adopting new technologies and moving to concepts like site reliability engineering and DevSecOps, there's an explosion of complexity. And they need a standardized platform that can help with this complexity. So there's also a services layer to this, right? And a component to, well, how do we simplify, right? And bring all of these things into Datadog. So I'd be curious, Tamim, if you just have a kind of generalized opinion if this is what you're seeing in the market as well, and any other commentary on this slide.
Yeah, I mean, sure, right? So I've been around the Datadog ecosystem for probably 7 years now. When it was only infrastructure, there was no logging, no APM. It was a much simpler platform. It was very much self-serve, still is very much self-serve. Documentation is great, adoption's pretty easy. There's a slew of different reasons for leaning on services or partners like RapDev and others. And I think we'll touch on that a little further down. But one of the primary reasons is the complexity of what the platform can do now. It covers a ton more ground. There's so many new areas. Within an org, there's a lot of different owners for the different components of Datadog, and that just adds layers of more than complexity, just adds time to being able to adopt the platform. And that's one of the things we're going to focus on today is faster time to value, faster ROI realization, et cetera. But I don't see that slowing down. I think Datadog's investing a ton in more modules, more verticals, more tech stacks, which is only going to increase. Yeah, great, perfect. That's exactly it, right? So you can walk through this a lot better than I can, Dave, but that's pretty much my point.
Yeah, and just going off of what you said, right? Datadog is a product-led company. Over 30% of our revenue goes into R&D. So we're constantly innovating. We're constantly releasing new products. And it's very rare to find a customer who actually has Datadog wall to wall, because what Datadog is today isn't what Datadog is tomorrow, as we're constantly iterating, we're constantly releasing new products and have this growth strategy that's led by our actual platform. So in terms of what we've seen, right, based off of some of the internal studies that we've seen as customers are adopting Datadog, is that when RapDev is associated with the implementation, they're actually adopting our platform and our different technologies 3 times faster than when they do it alone. And I'd love to hear just like from your perspective, and maybe we touch on this next slide, of like, when should a customer think about partnering with RapDev? When should they talk with your teams and come to the plate, right, to see if RapDev might be a fit?
Totally. I don't know if we can do a vote or if it's too late. I know this wasn't planned, but can anyone like raise your hand if you have worked with a partner to deploy Datadog? I'm just interested in what the number on the call is. And I don't know if there's an easy way to do this. So if it's too complicated, forget it. But generally there are 3 main reasons, right? So working on a platform that's not your core competency could be a distraction. Engineering hours are short. Working in a company that's got a huge backlog of features to get out could impact revenue, could impact top line. For us, very real at Wayfair. The code we got out translated to dollars, right? And in a lot of organizations, that is true. So taking away from that and focusing on implementing a new platform could be a distraction. Capacity, you just don't have enough time. Everyone's got a ton to work on. Everyone's got a lot of a huge backlog. And even in the world of Datadog, let's say you've got a team of 2 or 3 people managing observability. but you've got 7 or 8 different modules to deploy Datadog, you could accelerate that. You could parallelize that. If you're getting rid of SolarWinds, AppD, Elk, and Splunk, you could run those in parallel. And that's where a partner would come in. And the third is just knowledge, right? Datadog is now getting in. It started off as infrastructure, then logs and APM, all relatively consumable. Now there's RUM, now there's security, different sets of security products. The more Datadog continues to put out, the more you're gonna have to learn. Where we would come in is that's all we do, right? We live and breathe Datadog. We know what's being released. We have access to Datadog R&D and support, and we've likely seen any of these issues you're gonna run into. We could do it a lot faster. Not necessarily better. There's a lot of brilliant engineers out there. But if this is the one thing we focus on, there's a good chance we could do it faster for your adoption, which is where the partners would come in.
Yeah. And that's certainly something we see is as our customers are buying Datadog, right? They're really, really strong at operating it and getting to that day 2 kind of run stage, but they don't necessarily want to prioritize engineering resources who are focused on other projects to get them
To
from
maintain. Yep.
point B. But those are still going to be the users of the platform once it's up and running, and RapDev can, kind of help them get to that point.
Yep, agreed. Maintaining. Okay, cool. Sorry, go ahead, David.
I was gonna say, why don't you, just tell
Yeah. So who's RapDev? If you haven't figured it out yet, we're a Datadog partner. We're the largest partner by count of certified engineers, marketplace integrations, number of implementations. We've been doing this for, when I say we, everyone on the team has been doing this for, I'd say over 3 to 4 years. We've got a good amount of engineers that came over from Wayfair as well, where we were one of the early adopters of the platform. We're strictly based in the US. We don't do any offshore, nearshore consulting. And we really emphasize accelerating the value or time to value for Datadog as a platform. A lot of times what you're looking for, Datadog hasn't focused on. So think legacy tech, think data center, on-prem, et cetera. Would love to have the conversations around building integrations, bridging the gap between what you have today and what might still be missing for Datadog. But we're a team of 100 people based in Boston, and really all we do all day is work on Datadog.
And even though you all are US based, do you do anything internationally?
Yes. Thank you. There's a layout. You could have just called it out, but we do work in EMEA and APJ as well. So we've got a good amount of customers in the UK. British Airways was one of the most recent ones that we just onboarded. We'll talk about it a little later. But yes, we do have customers globally. The engineering team is based out of the US.
Very cool. Well, one of the things we see, and sorry, you can go ahead.
Oh, go.
Yeah, I was just going to say from a software side of things, right? Time to value is absolutely critical. All of our customers are looking for things like cost optimization. Like, how does RapDev help customers achieve these things?
Have we figured out the voting thing? Because I want to do another one for cost, because I'm sure everybody here is running into cost issues with Datadog. I don't know if the voting thing works, but very common. So Datadog's a great platform for self-service, which is awesome because everyone uses it. The risk there is you use it too fast and you use it too much, and suddenly you've got runaway cost. Without the right governance in place, and that's what we'll dive into here a little bit, it's very easy to lose track of how much your organization is spending. There's ways around this. There's ways to maintain this and control it. A lot of it's through automation, good hygiene, tagging, and maturity, and really just platform governance. Doing that right, and those are areas we're focused on, helps keep costs under control, helps keep the maturity of the platform growing versus having to deal with CFOs and leaders saying, hey, this thing costs too much. We got to get it under control, right? Focus on the value that Datadog can bring versus putting out fires for what the platform is delivering. And a lot of this has been high level. I think we're going to dive a little deeper on the next slide, maybe. I don't know what's coming up, but we're going to walk through exactly what that means, not just theory and high level stuff.
Sure. Well, I give the software perspective, and then you kind of jump in.
Perfect.
His perspective, but like when customers are coming to Datadog, it's usually a few things. Slow mean time to detection, slow mean time to resolution. This is usually because they have fragmented tools. They don't have a unified platform. Infra teams on one thing, the database teams on another tool, right? And it's a really manual kind of cobbled together type of solution that they're bringing to the table. And while that's okay, like, on any given day where maybe there aren't issues, when there is a serious issue, it leads to a really slow time to kind of figure out what's going wrong within that environment. And this also leads to things like scalability and automation issues. How does, RapDev help bridge that gap from a services perspective?
It's so mean time to detect, mean time to respond, right? Generally, the two themes we look for here, if you don't go into the crazy like 4 golden signals and all that good stuff, which I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar. Making sure your consolidation happens, right? Making sure everything you're collapsing outside of Datadog, other tools, other logging systems, other mechanisms of looking for platform health are done correctly, tagged correctly, traced correctly. You have the right IDs between the different modules within Datadog is really what's going to reflect positive when things do blow up. And things will blow up, and that's the reason Datadog is purchased and implemented. The last thing you want is, as something's on fire, you're trying to figure out why it's not detected within Datadog. The opposite end of that is also true. And again, if we had the voting thing, I throw this out there, who has too many alerts, right? Who's getting alert fatigue or too many monitors where you just can't keep track and it starts to become noisy. And that's also a byproduct of self-service. When it's so easy to use, so many people are creating monitors, it becomes a little tricky to manage. So you want to make sure there's like a happy medium there, where you're getting notified for the stuff that's important, but it's not overly noisy.
Makes sense. And there's thousands, right, of monitoring vendors out there, right? But maybe you could, walk us through the typical kind of vendors that you're seeing, the typical kind of, competitor to Datadog that RapDev is helping move to the Datadog platform. If you could just spend a few minutes.
Is that the next? Yeah. Okay, cool. That's next slide. So that was another layup. David's really good at layups. By the way, guys, put questions in the chat. I know the like voting thing isn't working, but it gets kind of boring talking to David because I talk to him a ton. I would love to answer your questions. But New Relic, Splunk, AppD, I think would probably actually, you probably do New Relic, AppD, and Dynatrace would be in one category. Signal Effects is part of Splunk, and that's a whole different story. But tracing, New Relic has just gotten really, really clunky to use over time. App Dynamics falls short in a couple different modules that Datadog has that they don't have. The one we're seeing the most, frankly, or the one running into the most is Dynatrace. Solid platform, just where we see opportunities for improvement is on the alerting side. A lot less flexibility on how alerts are generated and how they're managed, consolidated, etc. Sumo Logic, we're not even going to touch on. Let's focus on Splunk. There's a lot more happening with Splunk post-acquisition with Cisco. I think there's a lot of cost being incurred by a lot of customers. I'm sure someone on this call is dealing with that right now with their Cisco renewal. But security on Splunk has historically been the go-to. I think still a really powerful platform for that. But we're seeing a lot more adoption or migrations off of Splunk onto Datadog for security. And I think it's on a later slide, but there's over 6,000 customers, 6,000 Datadog customers using a security product today. That's not going to slow down. I don't know what that percentage is. I think there's 28,000 customers for Datadog. That's only going to continue to grow. We're seeing a lot more security adoption. We actually are building a security practice within RapDev focused exclusively on Datadog, migrating customers off of Splunk and Elk for security. So across the board, there's a lot of good options. Customers have options. You guys have options. Our 80% of the work we do is migrating customers off of other tools, doing it correctly, doing it quickly, and doing it within a given time frame. And generally, that's before a renewal comes up. That's when you want to be moved off of these tools.
And I think, all of these tiles are pretty easy to read, but for anyone who's not familiar with SNR, could you maybe walk through that metric for us?
Signal to noise ratio, it's not really a metric. It's more like a nerdy audio term that's kind of gained traction in the observability world, but how much of the noise coming in is real? What are these alerts firing are actually actionable? And I think there's a case study, I can't remember the company. It was an early adopter of Datadog. It was an e-commerce company that reduced their whole platform down to 26 monitors. Do you know what I'm talking about, David? I can't remember. It was a long time ago. Jay might know.
Follow up with that, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like that's exactly the power of Datadog, right? You go from hundreds and hundreds of monitors down to 26, it might even be 16 that really matter. And those were the indicators of the health of the platform. It might have been Shopify. I can't remember, but that's exactly it. It's really hard to manage noise when everybody's going in creating monitors, no cardinality on tags, et cetera, et cetera. That's where that comes from, signal to noise ratio.
Got it. Well, I know we've been like super high level so far. I think we're going to get a little bit more into the nitty gritty and how
A
we
little more
actually,
technical.
but as a reminder, right, like for anyone familiar with the Datadog platform, typically customers start their journey in one of three areas: metrics, traces, or logs across our infrastructure logging and APM suite. And then they start to mature into other areas: RUM, NPM security, synthetics, continuous profiler. What does that look like from a RapDev perspective? Like, where do you typically meet a customer in this journey?
So I was just told to have people raise their hands instead of a poll. So let's do that. Who on the call started Datadog with one of the three modules on the left: logging, infrastructure, APM? One. There we go. That works. Two. There's got to be more than two. Back to one. Back to three. All right. Generally, that's where you start, right? You're solving one of the panelists. Panelists don't count. You generally start with one of those three things, and then you grow into everything on the right. Generally, I think the number is 90-something% of customers start with one of those three modules. They're generally the way we used to think about monitoring, right? Observability is a newer term. Monitoring historically has been you monitor logs, you monitor infrastructure, you monitor traces. Even traces is relatively new. You move off something that's not working onto one of those three. Once you've got those three fundamentally working correctly, and you're tracing between the three pillars, and you're able to see a transaction across all three, you start to get into the more complex use cases: profiler, RUM, customer experience. And you can do a lot more there outside of just observability. You can start to manage business trends, right? How are users engaging with my website? How's my website performing, right? I think so, that's not even on here. That's one of the new things that were released recently. A lot of stuff we did at Wayfair was conversion rate, add to carts, checkouts, right? For any of you guys that are joining from an e-commerce background, that stuff's really important. And that stuff is user-based, not necessarily the infrastructure driving the application. That's the stuff that starts to bubble up into revenue and becomes a very valuable piece to the business, not just to SREs and engineers using Datadog.
Cool. And when we're looking at this, right, like we're looking at specific Datadog products. Datadog's a platform where any customer can grab any product off the shelf and start using it. But maybe you could talk to us about like, what are the underlying things that customers sometimes get wrong that RapDev can help with? And again, maybe a little bit of a layup here, but one of the things we see is tagging. So maybe just like, what do customers sometimes get wrong?
I'm not going to say wrong, because there's different ways of doing different things, and customers, everyone does things for a reason, right? We're all engineers. We all work in our bubble. What would make your life easier is standardizing on tags. Again, show of hands for anyone that's got a mess of tags in their Datadog environment. And I'm going to say, if you don't raise your hand, you're not paying attention, because everybody has a mess. There we go. Adrian didn't even put his hand down. He just kept it up. So the reason is there's a lot of one of the biggest reasons Datadog's successful is decentralization, right? You're able to use the platform for whatever you want to use it for. And that really gains adoption. The challenge is standardizing tags, especially in really large organizations. Different teams might be using the same keys with different variables for those keys. What I mean by that is environment, for example, right? Some teams might use env, some might use environment. If you're doing it manually, there's going to be human error. You're gonna fat finger something. You got to standardize that stuff, right? And then the same on the values of those keys. You can use PRD or production or prod or live, or again, you get the point. The only way this is going to work and scale is if that is standardized and if that's automated. And we'll talk about automation in a moment, but you get into these buzzwords, governance and maturity and blah, blah, blah. All it comes down to is automation. If you can get everyone in your organization to agree what these tags need to look like, and then everyone to use the same set of automation standards to apply them, that's how you really get that foundation right for Datadog and start to build on top of that. I'll pause there. There's a few more things to run through, but it really comes down to standardizing your tags and automating the way you implement them. And this is at the agent level. This is at the tracing level. This is at the infrastructure level. So if you're cloud or you're using Terraform or using any sort of infrastructure deployment config management tools, you want to make sure it's there too, not just for Datadog, but generally anything you tag in your environment should be standardized and enforced.
Got it. So is that like, I don't know everything about implementing Datadog, but like, is that the first step? Like, hey, I've adopted a product. It's time to get the tagging strategy, or do you do that before the first kind of like?
Tagging is not only a Datadog thing. Tagging is some orgs call it architecture, some orgs call it cloud engineering. It's across the board. It's really a tech level foundation you got to figure out, and that then gets inherited by Datadog. Datadog requires tags to operate. You're not going to get Datadog up and running without tags, but you really should be looking at tags holistically as an organization for everything you do tech wise. Infrastructure, deployment, CI/CD, Git. You're tagging the same core keys across the board, and those are the ones that should be set by your architecture team. In some cases, if it's a smaller company, your prod ops, SREs, but it should be a standard across the board. This is not strictly a Datadog thing.
Got it. And then as we jump into automation, right? Like, are we thinking of that in the same lens where it's like outside of Datadog to bring into Datadog? Or are we talking, within Datadog where that automation lies? Like maybe you could share.
Automation, I mean, like another buzzword, right? And like buzzwords get old, but for me personally, automation has solved two problems. Has solved human error and has solved speed, right? Initially, when automation first, we were saying automation is just scripting, right? This has existed forever. You write scripts to hack your way around your job. We've all done it. Fat fingers are a real thing. If humans involved, there's going to be mistakes, and we're all human. Nobody wakes up and says, I'm gonna take down production today, but you're a human, shit happens. Automation takes away a lot of that. And automation can also go sideways. You can write scripts that you don't account for errors or outliers, and it will take stuff down. Two is speed, repeatability. As long as you're doing the same thing over and over and over, especially in elastic worlds, in environments where the same actions are being taken over and over, automation is the only way to accomplish that. It's not even a recommend. Like nobody's going to spin up and spin out containers manually. By doing that, you're also enforcing a standard on tags. You cannot do successful automation at scale without having standardized tags consumed by all the different systems that automation is touching, right? Your containers, your observability tools, your clouds, your on-prem, even your scripting or whatever you're using, shared services is all needs to use the same subset of keys to make sure you're communicating the same way.
And
that's where automation comes into play.
Automation, like, in your opinion, and maybe I know the answer here, but like, how much of that is at the very beginning of your Datadog journey versus like an ongoing thing that you have to account for each and every day that you make?
There's two different answers. So there's is a partner involved answer, and then there's I'm going to do this without a partner. Our job is to come in and lay down the foundation so you can continue to use it going forward. Our job, meaning a partner, RapDev. We come in, we build your Ansible playbooks, we build your Helm chart templates, we build your Terraform, your TFs, and then you can continue to use them going forward. Chances are you're going to have to expand on them. It's not going to be perfect. We're not going to cover everything. If there was no partner involved, you would probably figure that out as you go, right? You got a team, you might have a team that runs all your config management tools, your dev plats, whatever it is. That's an ongoing motion, but our job as a partner is to help get those up and running quickly. There's also a good chance we've seen the stack you're using because we've done this over 300 times. Generally, the same tech stacks are being used with different cloud providers, etc. We can do it faster. We've run into the issues you're going to run into, and we just share that back with you, right, as knowledge. So it's not like you got to build your playbooks before you start deploying Datadog. You can do both in parallel. But at some point, you want to have something there that's going to standardize the way you deploy it, which would be your playbook, your automation, quote unquote. And we've said automate like 1,000 times in the last 5 minutes. So let's talk about something else.
Sure. Well, one of the things we've heard from customers, right, is like, hey, we love Datadog, we love the platform, but sometimes, right, it can get out of control, right? People can spin up things as they wish. How does RapDev help with governance?
Hands up. I'm going to skip the governance, go to cost. Hands up if if you had to explain why Datadog costs so much. Show of hands. Boom. Okay, so a bunch of people went up and down. A lot of cost sprawl comes down to lack of governance. And Okay, I guess we're gonna skip governance. No, we're gonna go back to governance. A lot of cost is lack of governance. So what do we mean by that? Who has access to what? Who can ship what into Datadog, right? One of the best things about Datadog is you got an API key, you can send anything in. That's also one of the worst things about Datadog, because if that API key gets out and people are starting to ship stuff, and most of it's legit, you're not going to stop. You're not going to rotate that key, because now you lose all the real production data, and now you got to go back and figure out who's sending what. If you don't have the right tags on the data being sent in, you're not going to know who's sending it. There's some really cool functionality that Datadog has out of the box that attributes cost based on cost center, based on org, based on specific keys. If you're not sending those in, you're not going to know who's chewing up all these licenses. That's a big part of what we do, right? If you have that done up front, again, tagging, if you're enforcing it correctly up front, that gives you a lot more insight into what's going on. And from there, you can start to try to manage cost, which is the next slide we're going to talk about. I personally don't like forcing users to not send data in. I always say get creative about how you manage it. And one of the examples we use a lot at RapDev is vector or observability pipelines. You can send, we gotta go to the next slide, Dave. But you can send any logs you want in, but using observability pipelines, you can get very creative. And one of the simplest examples I use is non-production logs. You can ship logs into Datadog all day long, but if they're coming from dev systems, then you can simply write rules in vector that say, hey, only forward logs with a dev tag between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. You might have systems running over the weekend. You might be running stuff. You don't need your dev logs to come in outside of working hours, because you're not writing code. And that's a very easy way to reduce the total number of ingested logs. That's one example. There's a ton more. But get creative with how you're sending data into Datadog versus having to get approvals and having to jump through hoops. And like, you're not going to gain adoption that way. You're not going to get a good user experience that way. You're better off trying to solve for what you're ingesting versus stopping users from using the platform altogether. But fundamentally, it comes down to tags. If you have the right tags in place, you can do anything with those payloads, right? Whether they're spans, whether they're metrics, logs, etc. You got to get your tags down right, and you got to automate that. Don't do it manually.
Makes sense. And shifting gears here, you mentioned it earlier, 6,000 plus customers are starting to use Datadog's security products. What we're seeing, right? DevSecOps, it's a pretty natural motion for developers, operations, and security to be working together. Where does like RapDev fit security into what you're bringing to the market and helping?
Yeah. And I think I stole your thunder on the 6,000 customers, so sorry about that. But everyone's workflows, part of your dev workflow, dev cycle, whatever you want to call it, security is only becoming a larger piece of that. And I think Datadog recognized this a long time ago and started to grow the platform to cover more security use cases. That's not slowing down. And it's not just in production. There's a lot more you could do pre-production with the product suites that Datadog's putting out. Scans, you can hook into IDEs. You can do a lot more on the pipeline, like actual execution, compiling code, scanning code, etc. There's a lot more that's happening in the world of the developer that's bringing security into it. It used to be the SOC runs the security world. You need firewall rules, you need incident management, you need any of that stuff. That's all post-production. Developers don't care. That's no longer the case. That's shifting closer and closer. It's already in the DevOps world, and it's shifting closer to the developers as well. But being able to quickly identify these things and point at how to fix them is a really big part of where observability and security are already overlapping, and it's going to get tighter and tighter. Another one is just accessless, like kind of what Wiz was doing, what Datadog just put out, having access to all your infrastructure in real time without needing to log in to look for all these vulnerabilities and scan these assets in the cloud. That's another really big opportunity that I think is going to only grow as more and more vulnerabilities get exposed in cloud environments.
So,
but sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say a Datadog customer, they have their Datadog subscription, right?
Yep.
They're using observability products. Maybe they adopt some security products. Is RapDev coming in and doing 24/7 monitoring for them, and they're actually reaching back out to that customer to tell them when something's going on? Like, is it going offering, or is this just helping implement it?
More layups. Thank you for that. We last quarter launched 2 new offerings, Managed Datadog and a SOC, Managed SOC, and those are both using the Datadog platform. So we do now have a full SOC offering that we provide customers. So we can do 2 things. We can help you migrate off of any other logging tool onto Datadog SIEM, and then we could manage that for you going forward through our Managed SOC. Which Ryan, I don't know if Ryan's on the call, Ryan heads up for us, joined us in Q3 to help build that out. But yes, we do offer SIEM services. We're heavily investing in that space going into Q4 and next year. And I think that's going to be a really big part of what makes Datadog successful, and by proxy, Datadog's customers successful. And our role is to help you guys adopt and grow that and manage your SOCs for you.
Awesome. Well,
I think we have a slide on that. I think we talked about that early, but anyway, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Platform maturity, a little more technical. I'm not going to beat this up, but another show of hands for using ServiceNow. Anybody have ServiceNow in their environment? 1, 2, 3, 2. All right, not as many as I thought, or not as many people paying attention. Maybe that's what it is. Most companies are using ServiceNow. We'd be crazy to think that Datadog works in a vacuum without ServiceNow or without any ITSM tool. The takeaway here is that Datadog's not the end-all be-all. There's a lot of other observability tools that you might be using that could feed into Datadog. And from there, you could use Watchdog or AIOps or a bunch of other modules to then send your major incidents out into ServiceNow. With some of the newer products, PagerDuty is no longer needed. You can do it in Datadog. A lot of automation self-healing can be done through Datadog as well, through workflows. The platform is growing. The platform is expanding. And a lot of the peripherals of what used to live outside of Datadog are now going to be merged into the platform itself. So just keep an eye out on all the newer stuff that's being launched. I think in 3 to 4 years, Datadog is going to be doing a lot of what some other platforms are doing today, including ServiceNow, including event management, incident management tools, Big Panda. There's a lot out there that's happening. I'm very bullish on where the platform is going. I think we're all going to be pleasantly surprised in the next 2 to 3 years.
Cool.
I'm not doing this to sell Datadog. By the way, we don't sell Datadog licensing, so it's not in my interest to make you buy any more Datadog licensing. I just really am bullish on where the platform is going.
Got it. Well, that kind of brings us into our next slide, right? And again, scenario-based conversation here. Customer buys Datadog, they implement it, right? Or they have a partner like RapDev help them implement it. Like, how do they stay on top of Datadog as a platform and keeping the platform itself healthy, right? And
we
we
talked
know
about SOC. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, hey, we know we're a SaaS platform, so
Yeah.
don't worry about backup and scaling and all of that. But like, what about the other things?
Hands up if you have a dedicated monitoring or Datadog team. Cool. How scalable is that? How many other things are you juggling? There's no way you're only juggling Datadog, right? There's going to be Datadog, there's going to be SolarWinds, there's going to be Thousand Eyes. It's going to be like 7, 8, 9 tools. What we've heard from customers doing this over and over is, hey guys, this is awesome. This works great. Can you just run it for us, right? And Manish, your hand's been stuck up for a while. I don't know if you meant to do that. So what we came up with is Managed Datadog. We will manage, thank you. We will manage your Datadog platform for you. We've got a team of engineers that know exactly how Datadog runs. We'll make sure that your alerts are actionable, that your dashboards are clean. There's no junk. You don't have muted alerts. You don't have untagged data. You don't have runaway costs. We manage all of that and make sure that your investment within Datadog is healthy. It's running as you would expect it. And we're doing it at a fraction of the cost. All it costs is 10% of your Datadog spend. So if you're spending $100,000 a year with Datadog, RapDev charges $10,000 to manage everything Datadog related within your environment. We break those down into 4 general categories. And on the next slide, we'll talk about that. Hygiene, cost, security, and scale. I'm not going to read everything on the slide. We're going to send it out later. But overall, we make sure your tags are good, governance is good. We make sure cost is not an issue, which we've touched on a few times today. People come and leave organizations all the time. They might own API keys. They might still have access to Datadog. We make sure that you take care of all that. And then scale, onboarding new teams, making sure that dashboards are correct. We do office hours once a week. You hop on, anyone in your team, anyone in your org can hop onto these office hours, ask questions, and it's our job to make sure that you guys can continue to scale the usage of Datadog. So we'll manage everything on the back end. You guys just consume dashboards and monitors as you get more and more teams onboard. That's what the managed Datadog offering is. We built it because we heard from multiple customers that's what they're looking for. I think we have 9 customers onboarded so far to date, and we started our pilot 4 weeks ago. So really excited about the offering. We are looking for pilot customers. The 10% is going to increase next year. If this is something you think might make sense, would love to chat, maybe even throw in a month or 2 for free just to get your feedback. So please hit us up if this resonates. Now we have questions coming in. Okay, let's take some questions. Base systems, very cool. We tried implementing Datadog 2 years ago. Hard to deal with, and with Dynatrace. Need to chat with you guys. All right, awesome, Bobby. Sorry to hear it was hard to deal with. We are happy to take a look and see what you guys ran into. I think we have your email by proxy of sign up, so we'll make sure to hit you up. But thanks for sharing.
Someone asked, can you give some examples of your approach to automate tagging and some common tags outside of environment?
I can grab that. Anonymous attendee, thanks for joining. I think we have a list of like 70 or 80 tags that we work through a tagging workshop with customers on. Obviously, you don't need to have them all there. We usually land on 5 core tags that are going to be the ones you're referencing: environment, location, service ID or service name, cost centers sometimes is a core one. And then the way you deploy it, the way you implement it is you enforce or you make those 5 tags mandatory. None of the automation will continue if you don't have those fields populated. And you can do some validation on the values as well through like Sentinel or just simple regex to make sure that whatever value is being passed in is acceptable. But part of setting that's the standard for your tags is working together. It's like a half-day workshop, run through a list of recommendations, and then what they'd be used for. And you can think of tags as being used for more than just observability. You can use tags for automation. You can use tags for governance. You can use tags for self-healing, right? There's a lot of different ways to get creative with tags. And we'd be happy to dive into that with you if you're interested. But I'm going to need to know who you are because all I know is that you're an anonymous attendee.
Yeah, and
So reach out.
I'm not looking at chat, but we didn't hit on it. Maybe you could just spend a minute talking about RapDev integrations and like where the Datadog platform sometimes ends and where RapDev or other integrations begin.
We got over 45 integrations on the marketplace. I want to say 40 of them, if not more, were a result of customers looking for an integration for Datadog that didn't exist. We work very closely with the Datadog R&D team, engineering teams, to make sure we don't build overlapping integrations, just so that Datadog can focus on a subset of integrations and we'll focus on the other. But a lot of times, the integrations we build tend to cover more legacy tech. Think Solaris agents, HPUX, integrations to tracing for SAP, things that Datadog really is not a core competency for, right? And if we think where Datadog's focus on security, the future, cloud native type stuff. If any of that comes to mind, or there are areas where you have a team pushing back on using Datadog because of lack of functionality, then definitely let us know. There's a good chance we'd be happy to build that integration with you and put it on the marketplace for you guys to consume. But 90%, if not more, of the integrations we built came as a request from customers saying, hey, I need help building this out because I want to migrate off of an existing tool.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks again for the layup, David. What are the product customers Datadog and AK? A ton. I don't know, Marek, the exact answer, but if it's not AKS, it's within one of those 3 clouds. But yes, a lot of work is cloud native.
And I'd kind of double click into that as well. Like, yeah, so a lot of our work is focused around even Kubernetes in these cloud vendors and having the cloud native Kubernetes offerings like AKS. So we've helped kind of embed Datadog agents into those clusters, trace the applications, auto discover the integrations, all of that fun stuff. And yeah, really, I'd say 90% of our customers have Kubernetes in some
flavor.
Exactly.
Some flavor, yep. For sure.
Another question to me that came up, I answered in the chat, but any integration with Jira.
Yep.
So I don't know if you want to. talk about that.
I think that was one of the marketplace integrations we built as a result of a customer request. I'm pretty sure.
Well, there's out of the box Datadog Jira integration as well.
management.
You know, opening tickets.
Yep.
We do see there are some more customers where we've done kind of custom integration work. If you're using like a kind of I believe it's Jira Service Management.
Yep.
Those types of modules within Jira, where we've done some custom integrations where we leverage the metadata that might be contained in that you know, Atlassian product and use that to populate tags in Datadog. So definitely
Okay, bi-directional. Yep. The platform is really growing. It's super extensible. There's a lot of cool functionality that's being put out there, and it's really turning into a platform. Like my definition of tool versus platform is, the way I think of it is, when you can start to write your own code on the platform itself or on the tool, it becomes a platform. Not integrate, not REST calls, not APIs, but actually start to do remote code execution. That's when a tool becomes a platform, and that really unlocks a ton of power. And really, you go back, it started with the iPhone, right? The iPhone and the App Store. And that just became, now every single platform has an App Store or a marketplace. That's exactly where I see Datadog going. And that's really going to unlock a ton of power for the future of Datadog. And I think I'm going to be told to shut up because we're running out of time now.
Great. Well, not sure if Brooke or anyone's closing us out, but we really appreciate the time and everyone attending, and we'll be following up via email.
Sweet. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for joining. If you have any other questions, just hit us up. The link's there, and would love to brainstorm. Thank you so much. Thanks for the time, and we'll chat soon.